This could be it. The A's are Western Division champions for the second year in a row.
To the play-by-play. All right.
The first World Series wasn't really in 1903. 1903 was just a challenge. Barney Dreyfuss, Pittsburgh, accepted from Boston, the American League, the National League, the champs faced off. But it was 1905 that was the official World Series. And that World Series was the A's and the Giants. And then 84 years later, with respect to Taylor Swift, 1989 held a pretty pivotal baseball moment too, down by the bay. This is Crafting the Call. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, voice of the Lansing Lugnuts.
And I'm Josh Suchon, the voice of the Albuquerque Isotopes. Jesse, I was 15, turned 16 in 1989. I went to a whole bunch of A's and Giants games in the regular season and the postseason, probably the best year of my adolescence. And I cannot wait to relive the greatest year for the Bay Area in baseball history.
I love it. Back in 1905, a World Series in which the Giants ended with a team ERA of 0.0. It was the New York Giants. It was the Philadelphia A's. It was Connie Mack. It was John McGraw. And because it was the New York Giants, I was raised by a dad growing up in New York who grew up a Giants fan, who grew up a Willie Mays fan. And so as he's raising me, my brother, my sister, he's raising us all to wear the black and orange. And that was the first year of my young memory that my dad's Giants had been good. It had been a while since the Giants had been any good. And now here we go. But this whole postseason, I cannot wait to relive with you all the way up until where this gets well beyond baseball.
Yeah, so I'm wearing my I just hope that both teams have fun shirt for a reason. And I know there's some people who are going to disagree with me on this, or maybe they're going to think that I'm wrong. But in the Bay Area, it was not like Chicago and New York. Most people liked both teams. They cheered for both teams. They preferred one team, but they didn't hate the other team. I never heard someone in my life say that they hated the Giants and they loved the A's, or vice versa. And I think a reason was that there was constantly this question of whether or not the Bay Area could support two teams. The A's nearly went to Denver. The Giants nearly went to Toronto. There was constant talk about whether or not they could survive. The Raiders left and went to Los Angeles, and it became this idea that we lost one of the football teams, we might lose one of the baseball teams, so we need to support both. They never played each other. There wasn't interleague. There was just these exhibition games in Arizona, or just before the regular season at Candlestick in the Coliseum. People had these split hats that some people hated, some people thought were fun. 1989, when you got to the World Series, was the first time that you really had to pick, where it really mattered which team that you cared about most. But ultimately, you still just were feeling such Bay Area pride. And then especially what happened before Game 3 changed it. And I contend that from the 1990s on is when we started to see more of a hatred, where you loved one and you hated the other. But in 1989, it really was a love fest. And we're going to get into what it meant and what it felt like. And most importantly, what the announcers described and how we lived through it in real time, Jesse.
Well, as we entered 1989, if you're the Athletics, you had expected to win the 88 World Series. You got upset by the Dodgers. Gibby in Game 1. Oral Hershiser was brilliant. You're going into 1989 going, oh, this now is our year. What kind of expectations did the Giants have?
Well, the Giants had been to the playoffs in 1987. They lost in 7 excruciating games to the Cardinals. They fell back in 1988 as the Dodgers surprised everyone. And then they started to make more and more trades. I think that Sandy Alderson with the A's and Al Rosen with the Giants were really pioneers in aggressively making trades to improve their teams. And it felt like these two teams were on a collision course the entire year. There was at the All-Star game, it was Scott Garrelts and Dave Stewart, A's and Giants starting pitchers. They were on a collision course the entire year. They both clinched on the same day, Jesse. The A's game was on television. I remember watching it with my dad. And then we were trying to find some radio station in San Diego so that we could hear the end because the Giants had lost 3 straight to the Dodgers. They're waiting in the clubhouse to find out if the Padres are going to lose. We're trying to find a radio station in Pleasanton where we can pick up the Padres game. We hear that they lose. I didn't go to bed until both teams had clinched on the same day. And then even the way that the league championship series started, the A's were at home, the Giants were on the road, then they flipped places. So if you wanted to, you could have gone to every single game. They never overlapped once, Jesse.
Oh, that's so cool. 1989 on the American League side. The fabulous thing for me, growing up in the Maryland area, the Baltimore Orioles released a season highlight video. It's an amazing thing. It's great. It's memorable. It's dramatic all the way to the end. The montages, except the Orioles didn't make the playoffs. They released a season highlight video for second place team because at the very end of the season, the Orioles have this big series in Skydome, and a Greg Olson curveball betrays him. The Blue Jays clinched the East. And so it's going to be the Toronto Blue Jays up and coming and soon to be back-to-back World Series champion. But not yet. It's the Blue Jays and the A's in the ALCS.
And really, it was the Rickey Henderson show. Rickey Henderson was, of course, acquired in the middle of June in a trade. They brought him back home. And so as we go back and look at clips from 1989, because Rickey dominated 1989, we're going to listen to Bob Costas and Tom Seaver describe just the sheer complete domination of Rickey Henderson.
Steve has battled back to a full count, and here it comes. Breaking ball misses inside. The Major League stolen base leader is aboard. He was easily the league leader. Texas's Cecil Espy next with 45. He's going, pitch inside, Witt's throw. He's in there. Bases loaded, 1 out. Remember, the A's grounded into 163 double plays this year, easily the most in the majors. Grounded to short. They're going to turn it. Fernandez to Liriano, takeout slide, and the throw gets away. Rickey Henderson made the play.
There's going to be a big argument. They're going to ask for a call out at first base, and according to the letter of the rule, they should call him out. He slid, but at the completion of the slide, the instructions from the umpires say he's got to still be able to come in contact with that base. I mean, slid hard. Fernandez is arguing with Dale Ford. Cito Gas does not yet come out. It's the kind of slide you want. The man's on your team. Lansford, one of those very guilty all year long of hitting in the double plays, and what a jump Rickey Henderson had. With the bases loaded, he's going to get it. And here comes Dave McKay saying, keep on going. All
right, so I'm going to pause it here, Jesse, and because for people who, if you're new to crafting the call, Jesse and I, we work in baseball. We started this so that we can learn from the greats so that we can become better. And we also look at where mistakes get made. And I think that this clip with Bob Costas, who is one of my all-time favorite idols, broadcasting idols, goes to show how great Bob is, but where he gets in trouble. He's great because he set the tone perfectly, previewing the double play problems the A's hit into that year. Carney Lansford was constantly hitting into double plays, but he got caught because he says they're going to turn it. He gets too far ahead. He just briefly, he's so smart and he's anticipating that he says they're going to turn it. But he's also so great that he's able to recover immediately with Rickey and his takeout slide.
And now we've got the controversy.
Yeah, we have the controversy. So let's play on here with Tony Kubek as the analyst along with Bob Costas.
Not out of the line. That's a legal slide until he went well past the bag. That's the letter of the rule. And of course, Dale Ford may be thinking of intent.
Of course, by the time he goes past the bag, it's not to get Liriano. He'll take his chances with Lansford. It'll be a both teams combined record-tying performance. This is inside the Lansford, and Henderson just trots in there.
But with a pair of walks, hit by a pitch once.
This is now game 2.
Stolen bases, and the crucial takeout slide on Liriano as the game turned in the 6th. Toward the hole, here's Fernandez. He plants and throws. Safe.
Nor any of us ever saw the leadoff men, but Rickey Henderson's got to be among them.
And he draws the walk. the tying run aboard in the person of a man who has averaged more runs per game than any active player and scored more runs than any major leaguer in this decade. Stottlemyre sets, and the 1-0 to Lansford. Ricky goes, Witt throws, safe.
That was a time when he timed the delivery. One look, Stottlemyre didn't freeze him, but that's what they want to do with Ricky Henderson, not show him the same look twice, but it didn't matter. Ernie Witt had no chance.
It's his third stolen base of the series.
Excellent pitch to throw on. Ernie's release time is good. Fairly accurate throw, but even if it's right in the bag, he doesn't get him. Now Ricky might become even more dangerous. There he is, see? Very unusual because Todd Stottlemyre did that quick pitch where he balked, but he changed his rhythm and unloaded in a hurry. And Ricky timed it with the right foot off the ground and boom.
A's trail 1-0, bottom of the fourth. Here's the 1-2 pitch coming to Lansford. He goes again. It's taken high. Here's the throw. He's in there. The infield comes in halfway. And Lansford lines it over them for a hit. And the game is knotted at 1.
It was Ricky's slide yesterday. Today, 2 stolen bases.
I'm going to pause here for any other thoughts that you have so far, Jesse.
It's the hybrid TV radio play-by-play. There's Bob delivering the score, delivering the fact that the infield is in. Here's the pitch. This is radio play-by-play that Bob Costas is delivering.
Bob did most, and that's primarily what Bob did on television as well. And remember, there's no score bug to tell you these things, so I think you had to do it more often. I think that Tony Kubek was outstanding in the camera work of showing Ricky Henderson's form, the way that he kind of leaned on his back foot and then stepped down with his right foot. Great camera work that's showing what he can do. And again, it's just the Ricky Henderson domination show here.
Bottom of the fifth, 2-1 Oakland. Trying to take a stranglehold on the series. Through the hole, he's aboard again, all 3 times. He didn't have a hit last night, but he was on 3 times then too. Hit by a pitch once and walked twice. He's stolen 2 bases. That's today. 4 for the series. And he's been on base 6 times in 8 plate appearances. Any grade school kid could tell you that's one of the keys to their offense. He lays off the letter-high fastball, and he walks to open the 7th. And a first baseman for LaRussa with the White Sox before that. There he goes, pitch down and in, no chance. Trot in there, Ricky.
David Wales very upset with himself, and he should be.
1-0 to Lansford. Ricky goes again. It's taken high. Here's the throw. He's in there.
Wow, he hit that back hard on the dive. Was that the left shoulder? Jammed shoulder, but he's staying in the game. Look at the rhythm and the timing. It's a very unorthodox way because they talk about the crossover step, and his first step sometimes is a false step. He's got the right foot in the air, and then it comes down, and yet he still makes it easily most times.
I think that's such a cool angle. That is a camera view that you don't normally see. It's behind third base, straight on look. And I think that view just goes to show just this is what it looked like when Ricky Henderson's taken off for third base.
Well, and also, as the director, as the camera operators, Ricky is the showcase, and you cannot miss anything that he does. It's so fascinating to me that David Wells here is in just his 3rd year as a pro, but he's already 26. He was an older guy coming up, and he's going to go on to pitch for 18 more years in the major leagues.
And eventually he learned a slide step. Back in 1989, not a lot of guys had slide steps, and Ricky Henderson sure took advantage of it.
Hey, not a lot of Rickies.
Right.
What a dominating presence he's been.
There
They
he
got him
goes. They
picked
picked him
off.
up.
The throw to second
Hit
hits
him.
Lansford in the back.
E3.
Here comes Henderson.
Tony Fernandez gave the target to Freddie McGriff inside the bag when they had him picked off. Lansford may have veered just a little bit into the path of the ball to get hit in the back. And with a methodical delivery that David Wells has, that's what you want to do.
The 3-2 pitch. Bad news early for Toronto. It's the 5th time they've walked.
So just a little background. Vin Scully has laryngitis. He has lost his voice. And after game 1, game 2 of the ALCS, now there's a travel day. Time to go to Toronto. But because Vin doesn't have a voice, Bob Costas now transfers over, calls NLCS game 2. And then NBC flies him to Toronto for game 3. It's just wild broadcast schedule stuff.
There would be more laryngitis that we'll talk about before this episode is done. The Blue Jays won game 3, so now it's 2-1, and we are watching game 4 of the American League Championship Series with Rickey Henderson once again at center stage.
There's no way he's going to get Rickey Henderson, and he throws an infield fly, and it allows Lansford to go to second base. Remove the double play. Ash Brothers been somewhat silent so far.
In the air to right. It's Felix's play as Henderson tags. Lansford does the same. Junior throws for third. Lansford has the ball hit him and kick off to the side. Henderson scores, and it's 1-0 Oakland without benefit of a hit. Hit hard and fair. Extra bases for Rickey Henderson. He speeds around first. The ball is in play. Untouched by a fan, although several reached out. And a double for Henderson. This will get a run home, maybe more. Mosby going back, looking up, out of here, and into the black seats, the hitting background. There aren't many leadoff men who can launch one like that to dead center field.
Manny Lee continues to jockey at second base with the runner Gallego down there. Got himself just slightly out of position line.
A drive to left. If it's high enough and fair, it's gone.
Yeah.
It qualified on both counts.
Like it landed right on the top of the fence, just inside the screen. A breaking ball, down and in.
A blur.
You imagine how many ways this guy can beat you.
What do you think here of the last couple of home run calls, Jesse?
Well, first, just to go back on Tony Kubek, what a great description of the throw to third being he threw an infield fly. What a subtle cut down. I've enjoyed Kubek is one of those analysis over personality guys, such a smart infielder. Now in the broadcast booth, he's just giving you baseball X's and O's, but he's doing so in such a sly way. For Bob Costas, the interesting thing to me about the way that he calls home runs, and now I'm studying voice, what a broadcaster can do with their voice. There's just that little inflection, but his voice doesn't change all that much. There's a little bit of surprise, but that's it, right? It's out of here. It's gone. And then the qualifiers, it qualifies on both of those counts. It's the Bob Costas intellectual, articulate style of calling a game. It is his hallmark is it's all in the words that he uses rather than anything that he's doing with his voice.
He's probably the most wordy, out of national broadcasters that we're going to hear throughout this episode and that we hear nowadays. He's adding a lot more details. You mentioned a radio TV hybrid that he does. Yeah, there's a lot of words. And I think sometimes he gets caught by doing too many words, but also his intelligence is just so evident at all times. And again, that's where I think sometimes it gets in his own way, but you can tell how much these two just like each other, Costas and Kubek, and how much they are just, I loved Kubek's line. How many different ways this guy can beat you, right? He's hit 2 home runs in this game.
Well, it's both of them are appreciators of baseball. And as somebody who loves the game, they're loving what Rickey Henderson is, which is one of the greatest talents that the game has ever seen.
1 and 2, great speed, a record, and then he does this today.
Jays fans didn't like to see him racing. They like him even less trotting.
It's a great line.
2 home runs yesterday showed that.
This is game 5 now.
He's aboard with a walk. This is a familiar and painful pattern for the Toronto Blue Jays, walking Rickey to start an inning or the game.
He's 13 of 20 times now. Steve is quick to first base, but when he gathers to go home plate, he can have that high left leg kick And something that Al Whitmar's pitching coach wants, he wants him to swim a little bit to get more drive to home plate, and that gives the base stealer an edge.
He's going. Pitch taken. Witt throws. He's broken the record. Ahead of Canseco, 0-2. Hit to center field. It'll drop for a hit. Ricky comes speeding around. Naturally waved home by Latchman. Mosby's throw, they allow it to come through. Canseco stays at first with an RBI single. Another 2-2 pitch. A drive to right center field. Mosby and Felix chasing after it. It splits them up against the fence. It's 2-0 Oakland. And Ricky rounds second, never hesitates. Here's one thing he doesn't have yet until now, a triple.
He needed no coach.
Again, it's so wordy here, right? Naturally, they send him around third, right? He says the third base coach, Latchman, they allow it to go all the way through. It's so wordy in a way that you just don't hear with national broadcasters now.
What does Kubek say when he sees that ball headed to the alleyway?
I couldn't hear it. I couldn't pick it up.
It struck me as he was already anticipating how many bases Ricky was going to make.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got Bob, and then you've got Tony just in awe. And the different way between Bob proclaiming his words and then Tony just sitting back and marveling.
He was shooting that way from the first pitch, and even when it went 2 balls and 2 strikes, he still was protecting against the vicious Dave Steed slider. He got what looked like a fastball up, and when you watch him go around the bases, he never picks up Latchman. He did it all himself.
Such good
You watch
observation.
Felix, Mosby, who was going to pick up the ball in right center field. What an incredible, fascinating player. And there's nobody as exciting as him when he's on his game as he has been in this series. Nobody. Out comes Cito Gaston.
Here it comes once more. Struck him out. And the Oakland A's have a return engagement in the World Series. Their second consecutive American League pennant. Canseco and the 2 Hendersons, and Ricky is the MVP. It was unanimous in the balloting by the media.
That's so anticlimactic.
Yeah, immediately telling us who the MVP is instead of pause. We'll go to a commercial break. We'll come back and let you know who the MVP is. Standing by downstairs. No, it's Ricky's the MVP.
Canseco and the 2 Hendersons, and Ricky's the MVP. It's Bob. Bob is so matter of fact.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that was the Ricky Henderson show, but there was a couple of other plays in here that I wanted to show because I wanted to get a little bit of love for the Oakland A's broadcasters. And so here are 2 highlights, 2 more memorable highlights from the 1989 ALCS.
Swing and a high, deep drive to left field. If that stays fair, that is gone. Tell it goodbye into the upper deck. He struck him out. The Oakland Athletics are champions of the American League for 2 consecutive years.
Josh, do you ever broadcast with the soundtrack behind you?
Okay, so there's 2 different World Series videos that were made in 1989. One was the official one for Major League Baseball, in which it is narrated by Al Michaels. And then there's a second one that was produced locally in the Bay Area. Safeway, the grocery store, produced it. Bob Costas narrated that one. Both of them are outstanding. I got both of them as Christmas presents. As a stocking stuffer, I watched both of them over and over and over again. I was able to find both of them online, thank goodness. And so a lot of the clips that we're going to hear of the A's and the Giants radio, there's going to be a soundtrack behind it. There's nothing we can do. It's better than nothing. But yeah, that was Lon Simmons with the first call there of the 5th deck home run, and then Bill King with the final call there of the A's going to the World Series.
I just love the mental image of the broadcast booths. That here's Bob Costas and Tony Kubek, and here's Tom Cheek and Jerry Howarth, and here's Lon Simmons and Bill King, and they're all calling this momentous series, momentous games. Lon Simmons' voice and Bill King's voice are just so comfortable to me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so the A's are in the World Series, and now we have the National League Championship Series. It is the Giants and the Cubs, which began at Wrigley Field. And a friendly reminder to people, 1989 was the first year that Wrigley Field had lights. And so it was a big deal that the Giants and the Cubs were playing under the lights in the postseason. And we're going to start off with a very famous at-bat from Game 1 of the National League Championship Series.
Before we do you remember the accusation that the Cubs could never make the World Series because playing all those day games tired them out over the course of a season? And so I remember it being a big thing. They've installed lights. Look, they're immediately into the NLCS.
And there was also some thoughts in 1984 when they made the playoffs and faced the Padres that TV said, hey, we need these games at night, and that the Cubs might have to play in the White Sox Stadium because the White Sox Stadium had lights and they didn't. And that was part of the, you need to get lights or else you're not going to be able to play your playoff games at home.
1-2. High pop fly to Sean Dunston. The infield fly rule is called. And that's the second out. But now, 2 outs does not an inning make. And look who's coming up. Don Zimmer going out to the mound, and Will Clark will be the batter with the bases loaded. Now, would you bring in Paul Assenmacher to pitch to an outstanding hitter, or do you leave Maddox in with Kevin Mitchell on deck?
That's the question certainly Don Zimmer is going to have to face. You're talking about one of the finest pitchers in the National League. There is quite a duo right there.
As they call them in the San Francisco area, the Pacific Sock Exchange. And it is open for business, and Maddox will go head-to-head with Will Clark, who has doubled and homered tonight. Sheridan at third, Uribe at second, Butler at first, 2 down. Giants 4, Cubs 3. The pitchers have regained momentum for each team. Remember when Scotty Garrelts allowed the triple to Salazar and shut him down? Now that the Cubs have gotten close, Maddox is trying to regain the momentum and get out of this jam. And Clark trying to nail him to the wall. High drive into deep right field. It is a grand slam home run. Will Clark, one of the great hitters in the National League, one of the great hitters in baseball, has a double and 2 home runs, one of them a grand slam. And that has broken it wide open. The Giants 8 and the Cubs 3.
Boy, does he have intensity. Woo! Doesn't believe that there is anybody in the National League who get him out. You can see Zim motioning to Dick Poe, get somebody ready.
Josh, do you know how much I imitated Will Clark's setup, batting stance, and swing?
Do you know how many thousands, if not millions of people also did the same thing, Jesse?
And his famous high-pitched voice that you could always hear Will Clark's voice. What a moment off of Greg Maddux.
So when they showed the clip of Will Clark and Kevin Mitchell, and Vin Scully is talking about the Pacific Sock Exchange, was this great poster. And I put my hands to my mouth like this, because whenever there is a mound visit nowadays, players do this. They were not doing it. And Will Clark later told people that he was talking to Kevin Mitchell. He was reading the lips, and he knew what pitch was coming. And he jumped all over that first pitch because he was reading the lips of what pitch they were going to throw.
That's so good. That's such a good detail.
Yeah. And then once Will said that, now everybody does this. Everybody does that now.
And you also have the understatedness of Vin Scully in contrast to what we heard from Bob.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, so the Giants then go back home to San Francisco, and it is a day game, Game 5, with a chance to win the pennant and set up a Bay Bridge World Series. And it comes down to a monumental confrontation in the 8th inning between Will Clark and the Wild Thing, Mitch Williams.
I guess maybe we should have figured it would come down to this. Will Clark with a chance to win it. The bases loaded, 2 out, and the wild thing. Mitch Williams on the mound. Tremendous pressure on Williams to throw strikes. And he's had problems with the leadoff hitter. There's a strike. Mike Bialecki turned in a tremendous effort, only to walk 3 in a row after 2 are out in the 8th inning. 0-1 to Clark. He is singled and tripled, fouled away, and the count 0-2. We wondered when we would see Mitch Williams. Where was Mitch Williams? We saw him briefly once, but he is center stage now.
Cubs are finally moving Jerome Walton over in center field. Clark is trying to go to left field every time against the left-handers.
4-1, and Girardi, of course, handling that hard stuff from an erratic left-hander. There is tremendous pressure on young Joe to stay with it. Maldonado is at third. Butler is at second. Thompson is at first. And Will Clark hitting .632 in the series. High foul down the line and out of play. And it's still 1-2. Remember, they're still in 9th inning. And the Cubs will have Salazar, Dunston, and Girardi. One ball, 2 strikes. Foul back.
I like the simple foul back.
In every important series, there comes that very important moment where it's difficult to breathe, difficult to swallow. This is that moment.
He's so good at these.
Line drive, base hit. In comes one. In comes Butler. Going to third is Thompson. 3-1, San Francisco.
There's something about just the way that it was the 4th, 5th pitch of the at-bat when Vin says there comes that moment in the game, in that series, when it becomes hard to breathe. And he could have said that when the at-bat began. But it just so happened that the fate was that Mitch Williams gets ahead 0-2 when Will Clark fouls off a couple of pitches, and that's when Vin delivers the line. And it's almost like the baseball gods were waiting for Vin to have the perfect setup before the at-bat concluded.
I would also argue Vin has feel, his feel for the moment. And just to give a little additional context on Mitch Williams. So Williams has been traded 2 days before opening day. The Cubs pick him up. And the Cubs in this season, he becomes a National League All-Star. He leads the majors in appearances. And in this postseason, this is the only hit that he allows. And yet I would argue, Josh, that this makes him a bit of a GOAT in 1989. And so by the time with that, we roll around to 1993 and he's in the Phillies bullpen and he serves up the walk-off to Joe Carter. People are already ready for things to come crashing down in his head. Although to this point, there was no GOAT. There was just a young left-hander who threw really hard and didn't know where it was going. There was a lot of walks, but he had been one of the most effective relievers for the Cubs all year. And yet, here is this enormous moment against the Giants superstar that it goes against him on a ball right up the middle.
But as Vin said, there's still a 9th inning. And so let's get to the 9th inning because the Cubs weren't dead just yet.
Well, the Cubs are frustrated and the Giants are euphoric. The Giants have reason to be happy, but the Cubs really do not have to feel let down. They had a magnificent year, considering how they turned the tables on the experts. A fly ball to Kevin Mitchell and Brett Butler. It will be Mitchell. And the Giants are 1 out away from their second World Series, the other one in 1962. And what was it Studs Terkel said about Chicago and the Cubs?
He said they're more endearing when they lose. They have a loser's quality. And what was it Mike Royko said? That the Cubs, like life itself, is a losing cause. That's why they have cemeteries in Wrigley Field. So this will add to the lore of the Cubs. With their great fans, they are 1 out away from going down again.
I would argue, Jesse, that this is when the phrase lovable losers began.
Studs Terkel, by the way, great historian and radio host in Chicago. Vin Scully is, and I do not use this term connoted negatively or positively. He is elite. He is highly sophisticated. He is well read. He is well listened. And then he gets these wonderful quotes and he locks them away and he brings them back up when he's got that moment. And now he is saying something about the city of Chicago through how he is casting the Cubs. And as you say, the Cubs are now locked in this cast.
So Vin is reciting the obituary of the Cubs with 1 out to go.
He's eulogizing.
For the Giants, who have had ghosts of past times, they're 1 out away from shaking them loose. They lost the series in '62. They lost the league championship series in '71. They lost the league championship series in '87. But the Giants now are 1 out away from brushing away all those cobwebs. 1-1 to Curtis Wilkerson. Like Kansas City, they've gone about as far as they can go. But not San Francisco.
Such beautiful camera work.
Little looper into left field, base hit. So Curtis Wilkerson, it's a flare into left field, a 2-out reprieve in the 9th inning.
Do you know what that line, they've gone as far as they can like Kansas City? I have no idea what that's referencing. Do you?
I'm not sure what he's alluding to.
Okay. All right. I was hoping you would know. I have no idea what that means. Maybe someone in the comments can tell us what that meant.
For the Cubs, their 8th hit, but they have left 7 men on today. The Oakland A's won yesterday and clinched with only 4 hits against Toronto.
What's that?
Josh, it's from Oklahoma, the musical.
Oh. Well done.
So everything's up to date in Kansas City. They've gone about as far as they can go. It's the song Kansas City.
Well done.
And the Giants are trying to clinch it today with only 4 hits. And the batter is Mitch Webster. No balls, 1 strike. Line drive, base hit to center. And the Cubs, as they have done all year, refuse to go quietly into that good night. Jerome Walden singled, aboard on an error, grounded out and walked. Line drive into center, base hit. Here comes Wilkerson to score. Stopping is Webster, and the Cubs refuse to quit. And the batter will be Ryan Sandberg. With Webster, the tying run at second. Mark Grace turning his cap inside out, the so-called rally hat. Sandberg struck out, doubled in a run, popped up, and sacrificed.
I'm going to pause it here, Jesse. I remember coming home from school and sprinting home from school to watch the end of this, being at home at this. And I remember just thinking, oh my goodness. Now, for people like I was definitely A's, right? Like we liked both teams in my house, in my household, and my family, but we were absolutely A's for sure. But I wanted the A's Giants World Series badly. And I remember just thinking, oh my gosh, are they really going to blow this right now? Because if they did, they're going back to Chicago for games 6 and 7. And I remember 1987 when the Giants had a 3-2 lead, went back to St. Louis. They lost 2 straight. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, here comes Sandberg. The Giants are totally about to choke this game away.
Tom Seaver is the broadcast partner for Vin Scully, correct?
Correct.
When was the last time that we heard him?
Very good point. And it made me wonder if Seaver was downstairs in the clubhouse ready to do interviews, because I listened to this entire half inning. I tried to edit it down just so we could keep this episode moving. And I didn't hear Seaver once the entire inning.
It was so surprising to see Sandberg sacrifice in the 8th inning. He had sacrificed once all year. Breaking ball hit to Robbie Thompson, and that's it.
And that's it.
And that's it. I wish you would have said something about immediately would have said that it's a Bay Bridge World Series. Because that's what the Bay Area was thinking. It's a Bay Bridge World Series. They've been on a collision course all year. And now here we are. They clinched the division on the same day. They clinched their berths in the World Series on back-to-back days in less than 24 hours. Like, maybe that wasn't the story nationally, but for those of us in the Bay Area, like, that was the story. And that's where I wish that there would have been something to acknowledge immediately that it's going to be a Bay Bridge World Series.
Yeah, the Bob Costas wordiness would go through this. Vin Scully, there's the storytelling beforehand. Then there's the letting it breathe, waiting, and then after a while coming back. But in the moment, very much, things are short. Things are always short for Vin. So if you want that baseball at the Bay, you're just going to have to wait, 120 seconds?
Yeah. All right, let's go back and listen to a few of the highlights from Giants radio throughout this series before we get to the World Series.
Comes, there goes Butler. The pitch swing on, hit to left field. Going back is Smith. He looks up, it's gone. Robbie Thompson with a home run, and the Giants lead it by a score of 5-4. This has been a heck of a battle right here. 3-2 pitch, and it swung on and hit high and deep to left. Down the line, gone. Maldonado with the lead from third. Butler off second. Thompson from first in the pitch. And Clark hits it up the middle in a center field base hit. Maldonado scores. Here comes Butler. On his way to third is Thompson. The Giants lead 3-1. And Superman has done it again. Webster at second. Walton at first. Bedrosian throws to Sandberg, and the pitch is grounded to second base. Thompson has it, throws to first. It's over. 27 years of waiting have come to an end. The Giants have won the pennant.
Hey, I like that Ron Fairley call.
Yeah, yep. A lot of people in the Bay Area did not like Ron Fairley. They never wanted to give him a chance because he was a Dodger. But I thought that he was an extremely good broadcaster. 12 pitch at bat for Matt Williams against Steve Wilson when he hits the go-ahead home run in Game 4. Hank Greenwald just sounds so good. Oh, my goodness. His voice for Game 5 on that hit by Clark and then the final out. I got goosebumps. Man, Hank. So good. So good. Like, the energy of, like, all of those calls are so good.
It's electrifying. It's baseball in the sunlight, and it's just, it feels like we're playing that kind of neon fluorescence. It is illuminating.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the World Series is set, and you want a little hype to get us going?
Yeah.
Meant?
Here we go.
My cat's an A's fan.
If A's win, my husband's sleeping on the couch.
This is a classic of all classics. It may never happen ever again.
that is so beautiful. That is from the Champions by the Bay video. Whoever edited that, just amazing work. 1 minute summation. That's what it felt like. And it was like, I want to say it was like we had like 4 days. If I remember off the top of my head, the Giants clinched on either a Monday or a Tuesday afternoon, and game 1 of the World Series was Saturday. So we had a full 4 days of that, Jesse. It was amazing time to be alive.
I mean, what I appreciate most is spotlight on the people, spotlight on the area.
Yeah. So now it's time for the World Series. You ready for some games 1 and 2 at the Oakland Coliseum? And let's go ahead and start with some of the highlights from A's radio for games 1 and 2.
Swung and a slow bouncer to first. It's fielded by Clark. Coming home is Steinbach. He knocks the ball loose. Safe at the plate. He jolted the ball out of the grasp of Terry Kennedy, and the A's lead 2-0.
Swing and a drive to deep right. Way back. Tell it goodbye. 4-0 A's as Dave Parker lofts one into the right field state.
Maldonado waiting on the pitch. Swinging a ground ball. It's fielded by Phillips. Long throw in time. And the A's win the game on a Dave Stewart shutout.
Swing, line drive, base hit down the right field line. Henderson will score. Lansford will go to second. The throw. Carney's in with a double. Swung on, hit deep to left. Way back, stays fair, it's gone. You can tell it goodbye. A 3-run home run for Terry Steinbach. And the A's lead it 5-1.
Josh, do you remember how Lon and Bill split up their innings?
Yeah, so for the most part, Bill had the first and the ninth, and Lon would do 3, 4, and 7. And I don't know whether or not they changed that during the World Series and during the playoffs at all, but overwhelmingly, most of the time, Lon had 3, 4, and 7, and Bill had the other 6.
What did you think?
So I attended game 1. No, correction. I watched game 1 at home, attended game 2 with my dad. And I remember being the very bold A's fan, I told everyone who would listen, the A's are going to sweep. Like, to me, it wasn't even like, no, they'll win. No. They were going to sweep. But yet we had tickets for games 2, 5, 6, and 7. And so I was really torn because I wanted the A's to win immediately and I wanted to be correct, but I wanted to go to as many games as possible. So, yeah, we had tickets for games 2, 5, 6, and 7. And the other thing I remember is just how warm it was. And I'm foreshadowing because people in the Bay Area would tell you that it was earthquake weather. Whenever it was warm in September and October, we would say this. And I don't know why we said it, probably just because enough people had said it who were older than us. We said it just felt like earthquake weather. It was so warm. It was so great. That was the other thing that made that October so special. We were not cold. It was like, even looking back at that, the Matt Williams home run that's just fair, I see people in shorts at Candlestick. It is a night game, and people were in T-shirt and shorts because of how warm it was, all of which just made it such a fun time because the weather was perfect that month.
So October 14th, game 1. October 15th, game 2. October 16th, day off.
And then comes October 17th.
And home for the Giants, one of the most spectacular vistas on this continent, any continent. Downtown San Francisco in the background, and we zoom into Candlestick Park in the southeastern corner of this city. For the first time in 27 years, a World Series game will be played in Candlestick Park. The Battle of the Bay continues. Game 3 of the 1989 World Series. The Oakland Athletics against the San Francisco Giants. I'm Al Michaels. Welcome to Game 3. It's been dominant Oakland pitching, of course, in the first two games. So Roger Craig has made some changes in the Giants lineup. Ken Oberkfell, the great pinch hitter, will start at third base. Matt Williams moves from third base to shortstop. Jose Uribe is on the bench. Pat Sheridan takes over for Candy Maldonado in right field. Now, the Giants, of course, are faced with a formidable task, having to win 4 of 5, in essence, to win the world title. It has become less uncommon, though, in recent years for teams to overcome a 2-love deficit. Most recently, it was done by the New York Mets in 1986 against the Boston Red Sox, and it was done the year before as well in 1985 by Kansas City against St. Louis. So the Giants tonight will be sending Don Robinson to the mound, and for Oakland, it will be Bob Welch, and there's no designated hitter in effect in the National League Park. Let me turn now to Tim McCarver. And, Tim, we talked in Game 1, the final score was 5-0, but there was a key early play involving Terry Kennedy dropping a throw from Will Clark at the plate. We go back to Game 2, the score was 5-1, but there were 2 key plays early in that one as well.
Well, you don't often think of key plays in a 5-1 ball game, but let's go back to the top of the third inning. Will Clark, the batter. The Giants have not had the lead in these 2 games. A 3-2 count, a split finger fastball by Mike Moore, pounced on by Terry Steinbach, the Oakland catcher. But look at the tough throw that he had to complete the play with Brett Butler running between him and Clark. Flash forward to the bottom of the 4th inning. Dave Parker, barely by inches, just misses a home run. Candy Maldonado with the hesitation, allowing Jose Canseco to score, and he fails to get Dave Parker at second base. So the Oakland A's take.
I'll tell you what, we're having an earth. I don't know if we're on the air. We are in commercial, I guess.
Yes, we hear you.
I don't hear a thing.
I guess Dave Parker.
Well, I don't know if we're on the air or not, and I'm not sure I care at this particular moment, but we are. Well, folks, that's the greatest Open in the history of television, bar none. Yes, it certainly did. We're still here. We are still, as we can tell, on the air, and I guess you are hearing us, even though we have no picture and no return audio, and we will be back, we hope, from San Francisco in just a moment.
Jesse, I was on my couch in Pleasanton. The cable went out before. I never heard that part. I just heard the cable go out as the ground was shaking. And I remember thinking, oh, okay, earthquake. Oh, okay, this one's a little bit longer than usual. All right, this one's much longer than usual. And I remember thinking, what did they teach us in school? And then it was like, oh, yeah, get in a doorway. So I was home alone, and I remember sprinting to the doorway. And the time that the ground was shaking the most is when I was running to the doorway. And I remember actually I put my hands out like this because it felt like the walls were coming in. And I got to the doorway, and then it stopped, but we still kept shaking. And then I went outside, and there was a woman across the way who was crying as she was holding her baby. And I said, it's earthquake. They happen all the time. We'll be fine. When's Game 3 start? And I remember being upset because the cable was off, and I go, oh, no. I'm going to miss Game 3 because the earthquake knocked out the cable. So now I'm trying to get the game on the radio, and the cable then came back. And what we just saw and listened to, when Al Michaels does come back, you can hear a roar from the crowd. And that was the initial feeling. That once everybody realized, okay, it's over, people made these makeshift signs that said, the Giants are awake, and people were cheering. There was interviews that I've seen where people said, it's the ultimate San Francisco day. We had an earthquake. That means the Giants are going to win. Like, people felt like, all right, earthquake, come on, let's play ball. And then you started to realize in time what was happening around the region.
Just reading about the Loma Prieta earthquake, did you remember a foreshock in August?
No, I don't remember that. I might have felt it, but I don't remember it.
It's so interesting to divorce the pregame show. And this is Al Michaels, the baseball historian, the great lover of the game. Let's talk strategy. Let's talk lineup changes. All right. Jose Uribe benched. They need to get Ken Oberkfell in that starting lineup. So Matt Williams is shifting to shortstop. Let's talk the history of being down 2-0. Did the Giants have a chance? Let's talk pitching matchup. Don Robinson going to the mound. Let's see how that's going to affect things. Let me bring in Tim to discuss the highlights. I actually think that Al's reaction immediately, it's an earthquake, and you can hear him say it. And then when they come back in, that he comes back in with a laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And then to say, well, that might have been the greatest open. We've got chaos. We've got enormous damage and death. I think that if you're watching, that there would be every tendency for a viewer to feel a great amount of fear. And so I think that the humor that he goes about, the way that he handles this, I think that that's pretty amazing.
It's also evident of how long Al Michaels had lived in California, right? He was a Giants broadcaster. He was living in Los Angeles at the time of this. He had played, he'd been through earthquakes, lots of earthquakes. And so that's why I think that there was just okay, it's an earthquake, the way that all of us felt initially when that happened. Before we get into the news coverage, there's a couple of other things from that open. You could tell how much Al Michaels loved living in San Francisco. You can hear it in his voice as he's describing the city. You got the aerial shot. And I love the way that he said, and now we zoom into Candlestick. It's just such beautiful coming together of a blimp and a camera and a director and an announcer and the words as we zoom into Candlestick. I thought it was just such a beautiful way of going into that. And yeah, all right, earthquake. Now we start to realize what is happening.
And that we've gone from the New York-based ALCS broadcast crew of Kubek and Costas and Vin Scully, Los Angeles-based on the NLCS side. And this was NBC, but now it's ABC for the World Series. Mm-hmm. So now it's Al. There's such a different feel.
Yep, such a different feel. And then initially, so I rewatched like the entire 2 hours from the time that happened, and I tried to just limit it down to some, we don't have so much time. But initially, ABC went to like Roseanne, and Ted Koppel came on the air, and there wasn't a whole lot of details, right? And I remember during this time, I'm trying to find any station, radio or TV, that's going to tell me what's going on. And then we started to really get an understanding of what was happening. And really it was because of the blimp that was in the air as we get to some ABC News coverage now.
That was Treasure Island we were just looking at, that the Bay Bridge, which connects Oakland and San Francisco, has lost a 50-foot span. There is at least one vehicle that is trapped in that area. You're looking at video of that right now, and I think if the camera moves in a little bit closer, you will see the one vehicle that is trapped. There is at least one wire service report of some people who were seen floating in the water below. I have not seen that on any video, have not heard it confirmed anywhere, but there have been several segments of highway that have been buckled. My ABC Sports colleague Al Michaels, I believe, can you hear me? Al, are you still at Candlestick Park?
Nothing. What is he doing? He's doing a straight lead.
Al, can you hear me? Al Michaels?
This is Al Michaels. I'm in our production truck. You're looking at a fire, obviously, in the city of San Francisco. Just to relate what it felt like at Candlestick Park, and I have lived in California for the better part of 20 years. Fortunately, there was no jolt. There was no question once it started that I knew it was an earthquake, and I think most people in this area knew immediately it was an earthquake, and then you wait for either a jolt or for it to stop. It was a steady sort of shake and roll, and it was an extremely uneasy moment because we just happened to be on camera doing our pregame show, and the sense I got for a split second was that we were going backwards. And in fact, where we would sit in the mezzanine, an overhanging booth, we were susceptible to being a part of the collapse of the upper deck, in addition to falling down below or having it collapse down below. You're looking now at a shot of the cantilever section of the Bay Bridge. That is not the main section, but that apparently is where, from what I can tell right now, the major damage has been done. It is the primary link, of course, between the cities of San Francisco and Oakland, and it's graphically illustrated right there. Fortunately, and there, of course, is a car in between the collapsed sections. We have, of course, from our vantage point here and from what we know, I'm sure you have far more information about that, Ted, but all I can say is that very, very fortunately for some 60,000 people at Candlestick Park, the epicenter was not that close to the ballpark, but certainly as unnerving an experience as I can recall by far in 20 years of living in California. We understand now, as you look at a fire in San Francisco that appears to me to be somewhere in the neighborhood of the Marina District. We have Gary Thorne, who is still in the ballpark with the Commissioner of Baseball, Fay Vincent. Gary, can you hear me?
Well, thank you very much. Commissioners obviously have been very busy here since this has occurred. Commissioner, tell us exactly what the situation is as far as the games are concerned.
Well, we'll wait to see tomorrow. We hope to play the third game here, but we obviously have to check the stadium and be sure there's no damage that would put anybody at risk.
That's the Commissioner, Fay Vincent, joining us. Thank you very much for doing that. And obviously a large crowd still gathered on the field. Al?
And Gary, and we're back here in the production truck, and it's funny. I think everybody at first oohed and awed and didn't quite know what had happened. And it's you get the sense that people are almost more nervous now as the reality of what has taken place begins to sink in. At first, you knew you were a part of something historic, sitting through an earthquake in a ballpark preparatory to a World Series game. And now, of course, just in walking out in the last few minutes, everybody is exhaling, probably 3 times as hard as they normally would. Yes, thank you, Gary. And frankly, everybody just kind of sat there. They were calm, and there was no panic in the stands. But, of course, nobody was given any instruction because we had lost power. Now, you're looking at part of the freeway section, as you know. And, again, I don't have communication with New York, and I'm sure Ted probably has more information than I do. But a portion of the Bay Bridge, the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge, that is the main span. Then you have Yerba Buena Island and Treasure Island coming into the picture. Then there is the cantilevered portion, and this is a double-decker bridge, and what happens is the upper level goes from Oakland or from the East Bay into San Francisco, and the lower level carries one-way traffic from San Francisco across the bay and into Oakland. And a portion, as you can see, of the upper level has collapsed onto the lower level of the Bay Bridge, the cantilever portion. That would be about, I would estimate, a mile to a mile and a half from the shoreline of the East Bay. So obviously a major disaster. And as I mentioned before and can only reiterate, very, very fortunately at Candlestick Park, everybody appears to be safe. Everybody appeared to be okay, and there is no visible damage in the ballpark. Now, you're looking back into San Francisco. That's, I believe, Highway 280, a freeway that parallels the Bayshore Freeway, which is Highway 101, one of the 2 primary north-south links from the peninsula and from the ballpark into the city of San Francisco. That it would be normally the less heavily traveled. Most of the traffic would be on Highway 101, which would be west of that. A look at where this earthquake was centered in San Benito, and you can see San Francisco sitting at the head of the peninsula. Oakland would be just to the right of San Francisco across the bay. And again, we here in the truck do not have any further information in terms of magnitude and the exact epicenter. There are some fires, obviously, in the city of San Francisco. Again, as we take a look at that, that appears to be what would be the Marina District, not far from Fisherman's Wharf. at 5:04 Pacific time, we understand was when the earthquake occurred.
I still get chills watching all that. So I think a lot about just how the timing of things came together, that in 1988, NBC had the rights to the World Series. Vin Scully, Dodgers broadcaster, had the epic call of Kirk Gibson's home run. And now it's 1989, and ABC has the rights to the World Series. And Al Michaels, who had lived in San Francisco, who has lived in California for most of his life, he's able to describe the Marina District of San Francisco. He's able to describe which way is the top level going into San Francisco, that the bottom level goes into the East Bay. He's able to tell you about Yerba Island and Treasure Island, and his love of geography and maps and having just been there was fully on display, because a lot of the other portions that I've edited out, Ted Koppel had no idea. He's not from the Bay Area. How would he? He's from New York. He's in DC. And Al Michaels was basically leading the news coverage for ABC at this point, Jesse.
I would argue, too, that having the skills of play-by-play lends uniquely to what Al is being asked to do right here, which is, we are going to put images on the screen. Can you talk over those images? Mm-hmm. Well, that's his job. His job is to look at a screen or to look something over and to talk about it, to describe it, to discuss the history of it, to discuss the context of it. And so there really is no one better than Al for this spot right here. Let's show you this, Al, go. Let's show you this, Al, go. And he is, even though what is there to add, all the while you can hear him and his brain wrapping around the enormity of what has occurred.
I think that in these breaking news situations, it's when you realize the importance of making sure that you save words, of not using over-the-top adjectives and adverbs. This was a tragedy. He used tragedy numerous times. But I think this is when it becomes important to not be too hyperbole, because we didn't know a whole lot of information. At this point, we did not know that the double-decker Cypress structure of Interstate 880 had collapsed, and that's where most of the death was. And that was the most devastating part in terms of death and destruction and how long it lasted before the Bay Area was back together. The Bay Bridge was closed for months and months and months before that area was repaired. There was a lot of people who were scared to drive back over on that area. I think about the timing of a World Series game and how many people were there, and because of when it happened, the game was immediately postponed. Not immediately, but pretty quickly, because there was no power at Candlestick. And so they needed to get everybody out of the stadium into their cars and home before it became pitch black. And so that even there was no public address announcer initially. And so it was a police officer in a car that was letting people know, save your tickets. The game has been postponed. Please leave in an orderly fashion that people understood. And that's when people really started to get scared. That's when you saw the players getting their families down from the stands and how they're exiting through the stands. Players went home in uniform. There was no lights in the clubhouse, no lights in the umpire's room. They went home in their uniforms. They took buses and cars to get home in their uniforms.
Just staggering. I think about that visual of Al in the truck. I mean, Josh, and he described that when you're where you are as a broadcaster doing the pregame show, and suddenly you feel like where you are might be structurally unsound for all the fans who are up in the upper deck. And now you've got Faye Vincent discussing the structural integrity of the stadium. Is this a safe place to be right now? And yet just trying to keep everyone under control so that way there's no stampede.
It ended up being 10 days until the World Series restarted. Initially, there was thoughts about whether or not the games would just be played in Oakland instead. There was the understanding of checking out the structural damage to both Candlestick and to the Coliseum. At one point, the Oakland A's went back to Phoenix and they played inter-squad games at their spring training facility because Tony La Russa wanted them to stay laser focused after what happened in 1988. The Giants stayed back in San Francisco. They felt like they needed to be in the Bay Area. That was the decision that they made. And then when it was time to restart the World Series, there was a lot of people who were wondering, should we even play? Is it worth it? Has it been so long that we don't care? And I think part of that is because the A's had also just dominated the series so much that there was this sense that, well, it was over. It's going to be over anyways. The Giants just had no shot. And I remember as a resident thinking, no, we needed the World Series. When the World Series restarted, that's when it was okay. We can go back to our lives now.
Well, let's just to give a little bit more context of other years that this has happened. What it makes me think of is in 2001, minor league seasons, it was canceled. September 11th occurs. There was no minor league championship series when you look league after league after league. That's it. Season's over. Baseball takes a hiatus before coming back. There are seasons that end preemptively in Florida because of hurricane season. The hurricane's rolling through. Everybody go home, get somewhere safe.
I can also tell you that the 49ers were scheduled to play a home game at Candlestick, and they weren't sure if Candlestick was safe or not. And so that game was moved to Stanford Stadium in Palo Alto. I remember going to that game with my dad. It was the only chance that we had to go to a lot of 49ers games back then. And that became like a thing of whether or not the 49ers should be playing or not, because there's no World Series, but yet should the 49ers be playing? And they ended up playing, like I said, Palo Alto at Stanford Stadium. And then it was finally time to play baseball again.
Yeah, I love that idea of, is sports a distraction? Is sports healing? What is the role of sports in an emergency?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I remember a lot of the 49ers said that it was really hard for them to stay focused, that it felt really awkward for them to play the game. Basically, they had to play the game because the NFL told them that they had to play the game, right? The NFL went on, right? After JFK was assassinated, they went on. I think that was a Thursday or something. And the NFL played on that next Sunday, 3 days later. So, but then it was time to play baseball. You ready for the restart of Game 3?
Yeah, let's go to Game 3 at last. A couple of weeks later. What, October 27th?
From Candlestick Park in San Francisco, California. Game 3 of the 1989 World Series. The Oakland Athletics and the San Francisco Giants, with the A's leading in the World Series 2-0. Hi again, everyone. I'm Al Michaels. At this very moment, 10 days ago, we began our telecast with an aerial view of San Francisco, always a spectacular sight, and particularly so on that day because the cloudless sky of October 17th was ice blue, and the reflections of the late day sun sparkled like 1,000 jewels. That picture was very much a mirror of the feel and the mood that had enveloped the Bay Area and indeed most of Northern California. Their baseball teams, the Giants and the Athletics, had won pennants, and the people of this region were still basking in the afterglow of each team's success. And this great American sporting classic, the World Series, was for the time being exclusively theirs. Then, of course, that feeling of pure radiance was transformed into horror and grief and despair in 15 seconds. And now on October 27th, like a fighter who's taken a vicious blow to the stomach and has groggily arisen, this region moves on and moves ahead. And one part of that scenario is the resumption of the World Series. No one in this ballpark tonight, no player, no vendor, no fan, no writer, no announcer, in fact, no one in this area, period, can forget the images, the column of smoke in the marina, the severed bridge, the grotesque tangle of concrete in Oakland. The pictures are embedded in our minds. And while the mourning and the agonizing and the after effects continue, in about 30 minutes, the plate umpire, Vic Voltaggio, will say, play ball. And the players will play, the vendors will sell, the crowd will exhort, the announcers will announce. And for many of the 6 million people in this region, it will be like revisiting Fantasyland. But Fantasyland is where baseball comes from anyway. And maybe right about now, that's the perfect place for a 3-hour rest.
So,
out of all the monologues that Al Michaels has ever done in all sports, that might be his finest.
I'm going to disagree.
Okay. Why?
I think that he begins it with several misfires before he finds the right target. the painting of the picture with the colors and the basking in the ice blue sky and everything suddenly gets mixed into a metaphor about how this area is a fighter. There's a lot of metaphors. There's a lot of imagery going around that he's not sure whether to go here or here. There's the worry about dipping in a cliche. His most effective moment in the early point is saying 15 seconds. That hits. And then when he talks about the effect of everyone on this area and where it's no longer metaphor and now it's real and observational and it's raw, that hits.
Let's continue on.
Ricky Henderson has been, throughout the postseason, dominating. Most valuable player in the American League Championship Series. He is 5 for 8, the entire San Francisco team with 9 hits among them. And Ricky Henderson has 5 as the leadoff batter for the Oakland Athletics.
And strangely, even though he is 5 for 8, he has been much quieter in the World Series than he was against Toronto, and he dominated. So here we go. Several days later, Game 3 of the World Series is underway with a strike. And you know that baseball is back when Henderson looks back at Voltaggio on the very first pitch of the game and questions the call.
The delay didn't change that, did it?
No. Jose Canseco at the plate, takes inside, ball 1. Canseco, and it's been forgotten, working on a string right now. He is 0 for his last 23 in the last 2 World Series. The record is 31. He's chasing one Marv Owen, who got a lot of publicity as everybody was scrambling for stories in the past couple of days. And again, it's up and in. 2-0, and Canseco, after taking 2 pitches inside, and of all things, Jose begins to go toward the mound. Some of the players exit the dugout, but it will stop right there. And La Russa comes out to talk to Voltaggio.
You know, that's just misdirected passion right there. I mean, there's no way that Scott Garrelts is throwing at Canseco under these, of all circumstances, under these circumstances. That is very close, however, and the book on Canseco is you've got to pitch him inside.
Well, you can see how close it is, and of course, Garrelt, who had some problems with his mechanical workings of his windup in the first game.
All right, I'm going to pause it here because as a kid, I actually loved it. I loved that Canseco did this. To me, I don't know if he did it on purpose or whether or not it was misguided emotions, but to me, it felt like, okay, yeah, we're going to play ball now, right? We're going to yell at each other. We're going to get into it. Again, I would love to know if Jose did this on purpose or not, but I thought it was a cool way to demonstrate, yeah, it's time to play baseball.
The edge that the A's have immediately come out with. Ricky Henderson is immediately questioning the umpire. By the way, neither here nor there. What do you know about Marv Owen?
Not much. Very little.
Marv Owen was shaken up by the earthquake. He was living in Mountain View, California. This player who Jose Canseco is dubiously chasing his schneid. He played way back when, East Coast. And now he's right there on hand. So can you picture the journalist trying to find any kind of distraction and searching out the Owen family going, oh, they're right down the block. Let's go talk to him about his 0 for 31 in the World Series.
Yeah, when Al says the writer's looking for anything, that's absolutely true, right? You have all of these writers from all over the country, not to mention, you know, back then it's the glory days of newspapers. Gosh, I think there was 6 to 8 newspapers who covered the team daily or devoting, you know, special sections every single day. You know, you've got 4, 5, 6 writers who are all trying to come up with some story to fill all this space. We can't get enough of it. We were a 2 newspaper family. I'm going to the store to buy whatever newspapers we did not already get delivered to our house. It was just nonstop. We couldn't get enough coverage of everything, of the baseball, of the earthquake, of all the different stories. It really was a challenging time for all of the reporters. And honestly, the more that I think back on 1989, Jesse, I think about just how much that influenced my desire to become a journalist, my desire to become a broadcaster, because again, I am reading and watching every single thing that I can possibly get my hands on as I'm 16 years old at this really formative stage of my life.
Let me offer at you too, what a great combination Al Michaels and Tim McCarver is. Both of these guys have an edge. Both of them are conversational. Both of them are smart. And both of them will say what they think and do not care. I think it's a really good combination of personalities.
And then you add Jim Palmer, the third person in the booth. So you have the pitcher, you have the catcher, you have McCarver, who's, more opinionated. Palmer's going to be more stately, right? I thought they were a great trio. Now let's play ball.
Having it again. So the spirit of unbound love in this region, which had even extended to these 2 teams, at least as far as the teams are concerned, lasts about 3 minutes. 2 on, 2 out, and Dave Henderson, who is 0 for 6 in the World Series and hasn't hit the ball out of the infield, takes away ball 1. Now, Gereltz with first base open, naturally can afford to be more careful with Henderson here, but he has Steinbach waiting on deck. In the air to right field and deep, and Sheridan goes back, and it's off the top of the fence, and in play, 2 runs will score, and Henderson has a double. Dave saying, wasn't it a home run, but the right field umpire, Paul Runke, was down the line and there to call it. Said it hit the top of the fence and bounces back, and it's 2-0 A's and almost 3-0. That's driven to deep left field, and Matt Williams has hit it out. People have been fantastic.
The whole area. There's a drive to deep right center field, and that one is gone. Dave Henderson this time hits it over after hitting the top of the fence in the first inning.
Better to right center in this ballpark than any other park.
And that one carries very well to right field, and that one is gone off the bat of Phillips. And the Giant bullpen is busy.
Well, you got to wonder, Al, what the line drive off Gereltz did last inning.
Drops down, and it's drilled to deep left center field, and Jose Canseco on a 2-2 pitch has hit it out. Walk people, it'll come back to hurt you, but especially in a lineup like this one. And there's another towering drive to deep center field. Butler goes back, and Henderson has hit his second home run. The 4th by the A's, the 5th on this winless night at Candlestick. Now Lansford hits it in the air to left field and deep, and going back is Mitchell, and that one is gone. And that ties a World Series record for most home runs in a game by a team, and most in the game by 2 teams as well.
Bill Baith, he's the answer to a trivia question. He and a couple of others who have both performed for the A's and the Giants. He was with Oakland in 86 and 39 games. And this year up and down between here and Phoenix. And Roger Craig really loves his bat. Hurt his shoulder a couple of years ago. Snapped his collarbone in 2 in winter ball. So his throwing has been a problem, but they think he may be starting Giant catcher in 1990.
There's
is a high drive to deep left field. Tony Phillips goes all the way back, and that one is gone. And if you have stayed with us, you have just watched a little bit of World Series history. 7 home runs in a game.
I'm going to pause it here, Jesse, because this then became the next storyline from a baseball standpoint, is that there was no wind. It was still warm. It was still earthquake weather. People are not bundled up. You don't see anyone in parkas in this shot, right? You just see people dressed normally. And the ball was flying out of Candlestick Park, which is traditionally very much a pitcher's park.
Can I give my pet peeve?
Yeah.
Anytime the camera shot switches behind the catcher and the home plate umpire, keep me with that center field camera shot.
Mm-hmm. Because these games started to become a blowout, it very much became conversational time, right? When a lot of these home runs are hit, it's one of the problems sometimes of a 3-man booth is that you're trying to finish your thought. And here comes the next play. Jim Palmer's talking about how great everyone in the region was. Home run. Sounds like Tim McCarver's still replaying, talking about the previous replay. Tony Phillips, home run, right? And it's just, Al Michaels is talking about you can't walk people in this lineup. Another home run by Dave Henderson. And then even Carney Lansford, I remember going wait a minute, how was that a home run by Carney Lansford? What is going on at Candlestick right now? This game would still get a little bit more interesting, though. It's a blowout here for the A's, but then it gets interesting.
Pitch is drilled foul by Maldonado, and the count is 0-1.
I love that a fan just falls down, doesn't get arrested.
Homered in their first World Series attack. Well, it's happened on 20 occasions.
Watch this, Jesse.
Canseco last year when he hit the grand slam against Tim Belcher. Now, meanwhile, of all things, don't ask why, the lights are out in deep right center field. I don't think that has anything to do with any sort of a tremor or whatever. We've not felt a thing. And in fact, in all of the years I have come to this park, it is not that uncommon to see a light bank go out. So I don't think it's anything necessarily more than some sort of localized problem, but it's enough so that it does change it to the extent that the plate umpire Vic Voltaggio and Roger Craig will get together. And what will they decide to do? And Roger says, okay, let's keep going. We've got enough light. 1-1 the count. There it is. Somebody didn't pay the bill.
The glimpse shots are amazing throughout this World Series.
And that's grounded fair down the left field line and into the corner. Nixon heading toward third. Phillips tracking it down in foul territory. Nixon around third. He'll come in to score on a double by Lick. So it is 13-7. And Will Clark comes to the plate. Matt Young is in the bullpen.
In that game in Cincinnati, Will Clark was taken out for a rest, and Mike Malaga, a first baseman that is not on the San Francisco roster, figured prominently in that game. Had a game-winning 2-run homer.
And he also had a huge 3-run double off Hershiser in a 3-2 victory in September, and Clark has walked. So, runners at first and second, and this walk in the park has become a little something different for La Russa and Dennis Eckersley. All of a sudden goes to the bullpen, and Dave Duncan goes to the mound. It's 1-2. So Burns is within a strike now.
It's a funny thing. We lose power in a night where the most power ever as far as home runs has been exhibited here in a World Series game. 7 home runs in this game. And now the power is coming back. Sporadically.
1-2 on Mitchell. Breaking pitch lifted to left field, but right toward Phillips, who has to back up, and that's it. So the Giants in the ninth send 9 to the plate, get 4, but come up well short, and the A's are 1 victory away from their first World Championship in 15 years. And the Giants are looking right into the face of a task that no team has been able to accomplish, down 0-3 to come back to win either a World Series or a League Championship Series. So on a night when a new record is set for most home runs in a World Series game, a total of 7 on this winless night at Candlestick Park.
Josh, as a kid, when that ball left Kevin Mitchell's bat, after I've watched what the ball has done the whole game, I was sure it was gone.
Yeah, me too. I was terrified. And it was also like, if Tony Phillips is in left field, that means Ricky Henderson's been taken out of this game. Like, oh no, what is happening? Yeah, and then at that point, the fact that that ball did not get out, I'm still amazed.
How about the fact that the light bank goes out? Number 1, Al Michaels, great job. This happens here. I'm here. I've seen it before. And they're like, yeah, let's just keep playing.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. I also think about, like, if that was happening now, again, we were all on edge. That if anything happened, is that another earthquake? Is that another aftershock? We felt lots of aftershocks. Most of them were pretty minor, but you would just start to get on edge where anything would happen and you would start thinking that it's another aftershock. And as I'm watching that now, I think about, this is before cell phones. If people did have cell phones back then, how many of them would be on their phones calling people? Was that another earthquake? Did you feel that? Is that why this light went out? Al is reassuring everybody on television, this is nothing. Happens all the time. They don't pay their bills on time or whatever. Whereas like people around the Bay Area are like, what's going on? Oh, we got another one.
I think that's so important for Mal because I think paranoia of the crowd is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So him as the settling voice, just like he was 10 days prior, him just being like, here's what we know. Here's what we're experiencing. Here's what we're going to do now in the Al conversational sort of way, because he's got such a connecting way in the way that he talks and the way that he is calling this game and bringing us to the finish line.
All right. As we get to the finish line, I still have my World Series cup, Jesse.
Look
Battle of the Bay. The Giants and the A's, I still have it.
Okay, so as someone who goes into this World Series thinking, come on, Giants. In Game 3, I have now figured out the A's Achilles heel. The Giants can hit the pen. So if I see Gene Nelson or Rick Honeycutt, Todd Burns, I'm going, okay, there's a chance.
Meanwhile, I'm really torn because I want the A's to win the World Series and to get a sweep, but I have tickets for games 5, 6, and 7 also.
Oh, baby.
Yeah. All right, let's get to game 4.
So here we go. The 4th game is underway, and the first pitch to Henderson is outside. The plate umpire is Dutch Rennert, and you will know that immediately. You can hear Dutch in Amsterdam. The 1-0 pitch to Ricky Henderson. Missing outside, ball 2. And again, the Giants digging themselves a hole as the Blue Jays did throughout the playoffs, and as the Giants have done too often in the World Series by walking Henderson, or at least letting him get on somehow, leading off. And he hits a high fly ball to left field, and that one is carrying, and back goes Mitchell, and it's a launching pad again tonight. And I have to tell you, I've seen a lot of games in this park, and that fooled everybody. But on a winless night, what would be a normal routine fly ball goes out.
just like last night.
Once again, that's the story. It's warm. It's warm there, Jesse. This is unusual baseball at Candlestick.
Nothing. Now the infield plays in with Tony Phillips at the plate and 1 out. And he hits a ground ball to the second baseman, Litton, who looks the runner back, and they get a very big out. And that's a real big out, especially with no designated hitter. Now you've got a base open, 2 in fact. You've got Weiss at the plate, but you also have the pitcher on deck in Mike Moore, a man who has hit 1 time in his career. And they will walk Weiss intentionally here. More coming up. The American League pitchers, as you saw, 0 for the last 10 years.
0 for 1 career. How about that?
He came up for Seattle in a game in 1987, and he was pitching for the Mariners, and oddly, it was in the game against the A's in Oakland. And it's 0-1.
Notice how he's got 1 batting glove.
Manager's view, having your pitchers hit towards the end of a season if you're an American League club. You want them to be able to help themselves, but you don't want them to get hurt. But you got to get there, and you need them to get you there.
0-2. You doubt that Robinson has a scouting report on Moore, don't you?
Has trouble with the thrown ball.
And it's hit in the air to center field, and Butler races back, and it's over his head. Henderson comes in to score. Weiss is being waved in. He scores on the first hit by an American League pitcher since 1979 in a World Series game.
That's Dave Parker, who would have been the DH. And I remember just thinking, Jesse, the A's can do no wrong. Like, even Mike Moore just got a 2-run double. The A's can do absolutely no wrong.
About the 1 batting glove, that's the way that Hawk Harrelson invented it. It's golf.
Really?
Yes, Hawk Harrelson, in introducing the batting glove to baseball, it was only 1 glove because he just brought it right over from golf. So that was the way that it originally looked.
Interesting.
0-2 pitch that Butler had a lot of trouble gauging. To Henderson is fouled away. In the Giants bullpen, and another spectacular shot of Baghdad by the Bay. San Francisco, Mike Lacoste, who is a possibility tomorrow night if the Giants can extend it to 5. But again, Roger Craig with no options here has to get Lacoste up as a long man in game 4. 1-2 on Henderson.
It's almost like an instant replay, that shot, 3-0 Oakland. The Giants have not been ahead in this series yet. They have been tied once the score, they were tied 1-1 in game 2.
And that's grounded to the hole for a base hit. Moore is being waved in by Laxman. Here comes Kevin Mitchell's throw to Kennedy. Not in time. Down to second goes Henderson, and it's 4-0.
You're giggling.
With the jacket, Mike Moore in his jacket as he's running around. What I remember, what the broadcasters couldn't stop talking about during this game with Ricky, because it's game 3, and the A's look to be rolling again. So there was tons of speculation. Okay, but Ricky's going to be a free agent. So let's talk about where he's going to sign after the season ends. And as it turns out, he signs with the A's.
Here's Henderson with Jeff Brantley, the new pitcher, in the count 1-0. Speaking of Tony Phillips, might as well pick up a couple of notes from last night. Lost in the shuffle. Phillips last night became the first player in the history of the World Series to play 3 different positions in the same game. He started at second, he went to third, and then to left field. So the home run assault last night, that was lost in the shuffle. And also lost in the shuffle, Carney Lansford tied a World Series record held by several, scoring 4 runs in a game. Henderson, meanwhile, drills one to the gap in right center field, and the only question is double or triple. Well, there's 2.
And he's on his way to third, and it's 3. And all Henderson needs for the cycle is a double. A homer, a single, a triple, and he is now 9 for 17 in the World Series after an even more spectacular playoff series against Toronto. Funny about Henderson, too, sometimes you just need that change of scenery. And frankly, if you go back to his initial stint with the A's, what really happened was you reach the point where you kind of wear out your welcome. And that was really the case more than anything else, even though there's a little revisionist history going on as to why he originally went to the Yankees. But that had a lot to do with it. You reach a point when the vibes just aren't right, and off he went to New York. And then almost the same thing sort of happens in New York, and then he comes back. And Lansford hits it into center field, and that drops for a base hit, and Henderson will trot home, and it is 8-0, Oakland. Very bittersweet feeling with the World Series loss as Mitchell cranks one to deep left field, and finally they have something to cheer about in Candlestick. That's hit to deep left field, and the Giants are trying to climb back into it. 8-4. Candlestick Park is rocking.
I'm going to pause it here to go back to what you had mentioned about this. Kind of becomes like a talk show about why Ricky Henderson left New York and why he came back to Oakland and where is he going to end up next year. At one point, I think I edited this part out, but they started talking about where is he going to end up, and wouldn't you like to be his agent? And it's a blowout. You're trying to keep people entertained, right? And now the Giants are starting to come back.
I like that we've got the ability to contrast the way that Bob Costas and Tony Kubek call a Ricky Henderson drive up right center, where he ends up at third, with Al Michaels, where the second that Michaels sees that ball land, he goes, all right, so is it a double or is it a triple? Which is just such a fun way of going about things as a broadcaster.
Yeah. I think that Al was right on it. My only criticism of that play, though, is that, look, at this point, he's emptying the notebook, right? Here's this note about Tony Phillips. Here's this note about Carney Lansford. And I always feel like save those notes for the number 8 hitter, right? When Ricky Henderson's at the plate, just lock in on Ricky Henderson. Save, when you're emptying your notebook as a broadcaster, save it for, no offense, the dude who's batting 7th, dude who's batting 8th, right? When Ricky Henderson's at the plate, just lock in on that at bat.
So here's what's happened in this game. The A's have gone up 8-0 behind Mike Moore. And the thinking is, all right, that's it. It's over. Kevin Mitchell hits a 2-run homer. Will Clark hasn't done much in the series, smokes a single. Mitchell cranks one out. It's 8-2. Now it's the next inning. The A's have gone to the bullpen, and the Giants are about to torch Gene Nelson and Rick Honeycutt.
It was 8-0. The Giants got 2 in the 6th thanks to a 2-run homer by this man, Kevin Mitchell. They have scored 4 here in the 7th. Todd Burns comes in to pitch as Mitchell represents the tying run. In the air to deep left field. Henderson going back, but has a play on the track. And the Giants come that close to tying him.
How?
Second straight day, Mitchell just misses a homer.
Terry Steinbach sitting outside, and it's a good thing. Off the end of the bat by Mitchell, and he just misses, tying this ball game up.
And look at Henderson's reaction. Whew. And that's popped up in foul territory, and it might be playable. Going to be real close for Clark, and he makes the catch. I believe he does. Clark's going to come over to make sure. Yes! That's all you'll ever need to know about Will Clark. Ever. Folks, I don't know what to tell you to look at first. Here's a fabulous catch. He winds up nearly in the lap of the commissioner, Fay Vincent. Right there. It's the commissioner. What do you think? Is it a catch or no catch? And then Willie Mays, subsequent to that, comes over to help Clark get back out of the box as Matt Williams leads off in the bottom of the 8th inning. What a no.
I'll tell you what Commissioner Vincent is thinking. All of these decisions over the past 2 weeks have been dropped in my lap, but now Will Clark.
Yes.
That is such a great line by McCarver.
One of the great plays in World Series history defensively that I think a lot of people have forgotten about. He is head over heels, and Tim McCarver was ready for it.
That's also an example, Jesse, of what baseball was like when you shared a stadium with a football team. Look at the foul territory at Candlestick. Look how far Will Clark, that's in the 20th row nowadays. And then also that's when they would add 2 rows for VIPs in order to get them a little bit closer and to add some seats. I remember we were so upset because the seats that our family shared with a bunch of other families, we were in the 2nd row, but they added 2 rows in front of us. Now we're in the 4th row that they'd put on the field. So much foul territory.
I remember the comment, look, because he landed on Faye Vincent, Faye didn't catch him. But if Willie had been sitting there, Willie would have caught him.
Yeah.
And he's handled everyone perfectly as far as I'm concerned. So Dennis Eckersley comes into pitch. He has a 3-run lead. And, of course, the 5th hitter in the inning would be Clark. You get to a 6th hitter, Mitchell. So here we go in the bottom of the 9th inning with Nixon to lead off. And tries to bunt his way on, and it's a good bunt to the right side, and Phillips shovels, gets him. Great play by Phillips, and McGuire with the presence to get back to cover at first base. Good bunt. The tie can normally beat out.
That's a perfect bunt, only other than the fact that Tony Phillips anticipates it. We already saw him go up the middle. You can see him pushing the base. McGuire goes back to the base, and Phillips, a former shortstop, anticipating that play, comes in and makes a snap throw and have it out.
The second terrific play by Phillips in this ballgame. And if you notice, Mark McGuire, in going back to first base, slipped and almost didn't make it.
So the A's continue to do it in every phase. Power, hitting, running, defense, pitching, of course. Fly ball to left field. Henderson makes the catch. And the Giants are now down to their final out. So you've got Butler coming up. And then you've got, after him, Sheridan, who's already out on deck. And then if they could both get on, you'd have Clark as the tying run.
And if you wonder why they're not taking a pitch, hey, look at the scouting report on Eckersley. 3 walks in 57 innings over the course of the regular season. So you better swing the bat.
So Butler now, the Giants down to their final out. 0-1. A's trying to sweep, but the Giants have certainly not made life easy for them tonight. That's a ground ball to the right side, speared by Phillips, flips to Eckersley. Yes, he's there in time, and the A's are the world champions.
Do you know what surprises me, Josh, is in the ALCS clinching call, the NLCS clinching call, and now this World Series clinching call, we've got a chance there for each broadcaster to really give us something, right? Like Al can really give us a good headline for the A's becoming world champions in this World Series, but he really doesn't.
Yeah, I agree. I think that all of them are a little bit anticlimactic. You know, and I wonder how much just the philosophy back then was just call it and shut up, as opposed to like really like hammering it home with this big dramatic call. You know, maybe by that point it was such a foregone conclusion that the A's are going to win this thing, and now it's over. There's been 10 days in between. You know, basically 4 blowouts. The Giants made it interesting in the late innings of games 3 and 4, but basically 4 blowouts. But yeah, I would have liked to hear a little bit more. You know, you think about how the A's were the best team in 1988, and they lose this dramatic home run by Gibson, 2 victories, complete games by Oral Hershiser, They come back in 89. They get Ricky Henderson in a trade midseason. Yeah, I would have liked to hear a little bit more.
Yeah, the World Series that they thought was promised to them in 1988. They had to wait through an earthquake, but now it is theirs on a sweep. However you want to tell the story of this athletics championship team, which is going to be back in the World Series in 1990 and is going to get upset again. So this is the crowning moment for one of the dominant teams of their era. Oh, Al is so good with the open, and now it's, okay, man, bring the close.
Right. Well, maybe the local radio broadcasters did a little bit better. Let's listen in on them.
Now the 1-1 pitch, and Kennedy lines it into center field, a base hit. Clark scores. Here comes Mitchell to the plate. The throw is cut off by McGuire. Mitchell scores. 2 runs are in.
Swing, ground ball, diving stop by McGuire. To his feet, left to Stewart in time. A brilliant play by Mark McGuire to take away a base hit from Sheridan. Swing and a line drive hits the center field deep. Butler going back, and he can't make the catch. The ball is over his head. 1 run scores. White scores. It's a double for Moore. A bullet to center field.
High drive, left field and deep. This one is way back and wrong. Well to left field. Henderson looks up. Goodbye. See you later. And it is now an 8-4 game. Thompson swings his one sharply by Weiss at shortstop. Butler on his way to third. He's going to score. It is 8-6 in favor of the A's.
Swung on bounce off McGuire's glove. Phillips has it. Throws to Eckersley in time. Another great play by Tony Phillips. And the A's have won the World Series in a sweep.
Game 4 of the World Series, Bill King had laryngitis. He did not call Game 4. Lon Simmons did all 9 innings. Bill King sat next to him as a statistician, passing him notes for the entire game.
Wow. I think this brings up a great challenge to have the final out of a World Series game, a championship clinching out, but it's made on a difficult play. We've got the deflection by the diving McGuire. We've got Phillips coming in from behind. So we've got this call that comes with a high degree of difficulty. And Lon calling the play, connecting it with Phillips's web gem earlier on in that 9th inning, and then transitioning into it's a sweep for the championship.
It's a really tough call in the 3rd inning in a game in April, in the regular season, let alone for the final call of the World Series. And I actually felt that play kind of summed up what made the A's so great. Is for all of Ricky Henderson and the Bash brothers, their defense was so good. And that was kind of the underrated part of what made them so good. Yeah, challenging call. I like Lon's call, right? And I wish that, I'm at the mercy of whatever the editors used. And so I don't know how long Lon laid out and what he said afterwards. I love Hank Greenwald and Ron Fairley's calls to some of those home runs. Like, there's just something about the way that the audio either was mixed at the time or the way that the audio was just preserved, that it just sounds so, it's like there's just an intensity where you can hear the crowd and the announcer straining to scream over the crowd because it's so vibrant there at Candlestick.
Those atmospheres were great. Great. And you could just feel it, right? That the Giants fans wanted so badly to cheer for anything. And so here's a home run by Mitchell. Here's a home run by Greg Liddon. Here's something to cheer for. And then here's the A's just to say, no more of that. This is our season. 1989, in the end, after all of that, after, my goodness, what a season, what a postseason. And the A's get their first title since, 1974.
So because there was still so much heartache going on throughout the Bay Area, the celebration for the A's was very muted. It was very muted in the clubhouse. Afterward, there was no victory parade. The Oakland A's never had a victory parade. It did not feel right. They were still, the Cypress structure had collapsed. They were still untangling and trying to figure out the highway and tearing it down and the lives of people. And it didn't feel right to have a parade through Oakland because of that. So there was never a parade. And so you think back to, the A's, they go to 3 straight World Series. They only win 1. That 1 is mostly remembered by the earthquake. There was no parade. And poor Bill King doesn't get to call game 4 because he's got laryngitis.
Cruel.
Mm-hmm. All that said, 1989 is still the best year of my adolescence. There's so much fun that entire year. Everything about that year. Even starting in January, 49ers won a Super Bowl. The A's and Giants dominate baseball. And then the 49ers won another Super Bowl. That was some kind of year in the Bay Area, 1989.
And then Ricky moves onward and Smoke moves onward. And Jose Canseco gets traded for Ruben Sierra.
And I think that Tony Phillips not getting re-signed was the biggest mistake the A's made out of all of those moves. Tony was a free agent at the end of 1989. If they had re-signed him, I think they would have won another one. They might have won multiple. I think that was the biggest mistake out of all of because Ricky and Stu, they left later, right? Ricky re-signed with the A's. He was MVP in 1990. He played until 93. They traded him away. They signed him immediately in 94. Stu left, I think it was 93, 94, somewhere in that range when he went to the Blue Jays. Immediately losing Tony Phillips is what hurt the A's more than anybody else.
Did you imitate the Tony Phillips?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we imitated everybody. Carney with the timing mechanism and Jose with this snapping the head, We imitated everybody.
Ricky Henderson, you needed to be limber. You needed to be flexible to get your body into the positions he could get it into at the plate.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you. This has been a joy. A joy isn't it. This has been so many different emotions to go through what occurred in 1989. The fact that it was the 2 Bay Area teams at the same time as the terrible Bay Area quake.
I think there's a lot of people, if you were to say who's on your Mount Rushmore of broadcasters, I think almost everybody would either put Bob Costas, Al Michaels, or Vin Scully on their Mount Rushmore. And there's a lot of people who would put all 3 of them on their Mount Rushmore.
Bill King?
And so for those were the 3 national voices doing play-by-play in the 1989 playoffs. And then, for me, growing up listening to Bill King and Lon Simmons and Hank Greenwald and just getting the clips ready for this episode, watching this episode with you, I almost feel like I have a better appreciation for what I was inspired by a lot of the things that I say and that I do without even realizing it, because these are all the people that I listened to in my formative years as a teenager. And so much of my own style, so much of my love of baseball was because of this season, my desire to want to be in it in some way. So much of it, I learned journalism from reading all of these stories, from watching the news coverage of the earthquake. This was not just my favorite year as a kid growing up, but it was the most pivotal year in me understanding this is what it takes if you are going to do this for your career.
And by the way, we didn't listen to their voices at all, but the national radio call was Jack Buck working alongside Johnny Bench and John Rooney.
Yeah. Thank you for indulging me on this. It's such a, this is the ultimate nostalgic year for me, Jesse.
1989. I had all these games on VHS. For Josh Suchon, the voice of the Albuquerque Isotopes, I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, voice of the Lansing Lugnuts. Josh, take us out.
This has been Crafting the Call.